My name is Elnora, and I am 58 years old. I still remember the feeling of red wine dripping down my white dress on Christmas night. My daughter stood there, empty glass in hand, eyes cold as ice. She said, "Why don't you stop meddling in my life?" 15 guests watched in silence. No one moved. No one spoke. But my daughter did not know what I had been preparing for 6 months. Before I continue, let me know where you are watching from today. Hit that like button and subscribe to this channel. Have you ever been humiliated by your own child in front of everyone you know? Stay with me because what happened next changed everything. Let me take you back to where it all began, so you can understand how we got to that terrible Christmas night. Walter and I have been married for 36 years. We started with nothing. Absolutely nothing. When we got married, we had a small apartment, a used car, and big dreams. That was all. I opened my bakery when I was 28 years old. It was a tiny shop on the corner of Main Street in our small Texas town. I woke up at 4 in the morning every single day. I mixed dough while the world was still dark. I decorated cakes while my neighbors were still sleeping. For 25 years, I poured my heart into that bakery. Walter worked at the local bank. He started as a teller, counting other people's money all day long. But he was smart and hard-working. Year after year, he climbed the ladder. By the time he retired, he was a branch manager, not the highest position, but respectable. We were proud of what we built together. 2 years ago, I sold my bakery, $1,200,000. That money represented every early morning, every aching back, every missed vacation. We bought our house outright, put the rest in savings, and finally relaxed. Our 4-bedroom home has a garden I tend every day. Roses in the front, tomatoes in the back. Simple pleasures for simple people. Then there is Stephanie. Stephanie is our only child. She came to us after years of trying. I had almost given up hope when the doctor told me I was pregnant. From the moment she was born, she became the center of our universe. I remember when Stephanie was 7 years old. She would stand on a little stool in my bakery kitchen, helping me decorate cookies for Christmas. Her tiny hands would shake as she piped icing, her tongue sticking out in concentration. We would make a mess together, flour everywhere, laughing until our stomachs hurt. When Stephanie was 12, I got an offer to open a second bakery location in Houston. It would have meant more money, more success, more everything. But it also would have meant less time with my daughter. I said no, without hesitation. Stephanie needed her mother, and I needed to be there for her. Walter taught her about money from a young age. He showed her how to save her allowance, how to set goals, how to understand the value of hard work. Every Sunday, they would sit at the kitchen table and go over her little savings account. He was so patient with her. Stephanie graduated from college with honors, business degree. We sat in the audience, tears streaming down our faces, so proud we could burst. Our little girl had done it. She was going to take on the world. And then she met Derek. Derek came into Stephanie's life 6 years ago. They met at some networking event for young professionals. Stephanie called me that night, breathless with excitement. She told me he was handsome, successful, from a good family. 8 months later, she wanted to marry him. I remember meeting Derek for the first time. He was charming on the surface. Good suit, firm handshake, bright smile. But something felt off. His eyes darted around too much. He talked about money constantly. He name-dropped people we had never heard of. Derek's family had been wealthy once. His father made millions in real estate, then lost everything in bad investments. By the time Derek and Stephanie met, his family had nothing left but memories of better days and an attitude that had not adjusted to their new reality. I voiced my concerns to Stephanie gently. She told me I was being paranoid. She told me Derek was different from his family. She told me to trust her judgment. So I did. What else could I do? She was an adult, and I loved her. The wedding was beautiful. Small, elegant, exactly what Stephanie wanted. Walter and I paid for most of it happily. This was our daughter's special day. After the wedding, things started to change. Stephanie and Derek needed money to buy a house. The real estate market was hot, they said. They needed to act fast, they said. Could we help? We gave them $250,000, not a gift, a loan. We had a lawyer draw up papers, everything official, everything documented. They would pay us back over time, they promised. 2 years later, Derek wanted to start his own brokerage firm. He had big dreams, big plans, big talk. They needed capital. Could we help again? Another $100,000, more papers, more promises, $350,000 total. That was what we gave our daughter and her husband, nearly a third of our life savings. We trusted them. We believed in them. We wanted to see them succeed. 4 years passed. They never paid back a single dollar, not one. I did not push. I did not nag. I told myself they were still getting established. I told myself the money would come eventually. I told myself that helping your children was what parents did. Looking back now, I wonder if my love blinded me to what was really happening. Every dollar we gave seemed to push Stephanie further away, not closer. Every sacrifice we made seemed to diminish us in her eyes, not elevate us. But I would not understand that truth until much later. Until the red wine stained my white dress. Until my daughter showed me exactly what she thought of the mother who gave her everything. The first cracks appeared about 2 years after the wedding. Small things at first, things you could explain away if you tried hard enough. Stephanie used to call me 3 or 4 times a week. We would talk about everything and nothing. Her job, my garden recipes. We wanted to try silly things we saw on television. Those calls were the highlight of my days. Then the calls became twice a week, then once a week, then barely at all. When I called her, Stephanie would answer with a sigh in her voice. She would give me one-word responses. Yes. No. Fine. Busy. She would say she had to go before we had talked for even 5 minutes. I told myself she was just busy with work. Young people today, they work so hard. They have so much pressure. I made excuses for her because the alternative hurt too much to consider. The family dinners changed too. Stephanie and Derek would come to our house, but it felt different. Derek spent most of the time looking at his phone or checking his watch. He would make comments about our furniture being outdated, our neighborhood being quiet, our food being heavy. Stephanie would laugh at his comments, not the way you laugh when something is funny, the way you laugh when you are trying to fit in with someone. Nervous laughter. Approval-seeking laughter. One Thanksgiving, I overheard Stephanie talking to Derek in our hallway. They did not know I was in the next room putting away dishes. They just don't understand our lifestyle, Stephanie said. They've never experienced what we're trying to build. Derek snorted. They wouldn't know good wine from grape juice. This is painful. My hands shook so badly I almost dropped a plate. I stood there frozen, waiting for Stephanie to defend us, waiting for her to say something, anything about the parents who raised her and loved her and gave her everything they had. She said nothing. She just laughed that nervous laugh again. I never told Walter about that conversation. I buried it deep inside me and tried to forget. But some words, once you hear them, they stay with you forever. Then came Stephanie's 32nd birthday party. I decided to host it at our house like I had done every year since she was born. I spent 3 days preparing. I made her favorite dishes from childhood. Pot roast with carrots and potatoes. Homemade dinner rolls. Green bean casserole with crispy onions on top. And of course, I made her birthday cake myself. 3 layers, chocolate with vanilla frosting decorated with roses made of buttercream. Stephanie and Derek arrived 2 hours late. No apology, no explanation. They just walked in like nothing was wrong. When Stephanie saw the cake, she wrinkled her nose. Actually wrinkled it like she smelled something unpleasant. "Mum," she said, "I really wanted a cake from that fancy bakery downtown. You know the one. Everyone's talking about it." Derek added his opinion without anyone asking. "Homemade cakes are a bit basic, don't you think? Kind of pedestrian." I felt like I had been slapped. 25 years of professional baking, thousands of cakes, countless happy customers, and my own daughter in front of my friends and family called my work basic, pedestrian. I smiled because that was what I knew how to do. I smiled and cut the cake and served everyone and pretended my heart was not breaking into pieces. After the party, when everyone had left, Walter found me crying in the kitchen. He held me without saying anything. He just held me. Sometimes that is all you can do. "Something is wrong with Stephanie," he finally said. "This is not the daughter we raised." I wanted to argue. I wanted to defend her. But deep down, I knew he was right. A month after the birthday disaster, I went to visit my mother-in-law Margaret at her nursing home. Margaret is 82 years old, sharp as a tack, and the only member of Walter's family I truly love. She is more like a mother to me than a mother-in-law. We have been paying for her care at that nursing home for 8 years now. $4,000 every month for a nice room, good food, and proper medical attention. We never complained. Margaret deserved dignity in her final years. She had been a wonderful grandmother to Stephanie. That day, Margaret looked troubled when I arrived. She kept fidgeting with her blanket, not meeting my eyes. "Something happened last week," she finally said. "Stephanie came to visit." I felt a flutter of hope. Stephanie visiting her grandmother. That was good news, right? Margaret shook her head slowly. "She came to talk about my will. She wanted to know what I'm leaving behind. She said—" Margaret paused, swallowing hard. "She said I should leave everything to her. She said you and Walter already have enough." The room tilted around me. I grabbed the arm of the chair to steady myself. "She actually said that—" My voice sounded strange to my own ears. "Word for word," Margaret confirmed. "She said she deserves it more. She said she's the one who will carry on the family. She did not even ask how I was feeling first." I sat in that room with Margaret for a long time. We did not say much more. What was there to say? My daughter had looked at her elderly grandmother and seen nothing but a future inheritance. She had looked at a woman who loved her unconditionally and calculated her worth in dollars and cents. Driving home that day, I did not turn on the radio like I usually did. I needed the silence. I needed to think. The daughter. I raised the little girl who used to decorate cookies with me, who used to cry when she found an injured bird in the yard, who used to save her allowance to buy presents for others. Where had she gone? When did money become more important than family? When did status become more important than love? When did my Stephanie disappear? And who was this stranger wearing her face? Those questions haunted me for weeks. They followed me into my sleep. They greeted me every morning, and they led me eventually to make decisions I never thought I would have to make. Everything started to become clearer in the fall. October came with cool breezes and changing leaves, and with it came revelations I could no longer ignore. My sister Donna came to visit from Houston. She is 5 years younger than me, divorced, and one of the few people in this world I trust completely. We sat on my back porch, drinking sweet tea and catching up on life. Donna got quiet, suddenly staring at her glass, like it held some secret. "I need to tell you something," she said. "I've been wrestling with whether I should, but you're my sister. You deserve to know." A cold feeling spread through my chest. "What is it?" Stephanie called me about 3 weeks ago. She asked to borrow $50,000. I set my tea down carefully. She did what? I told her no. I don't have that kind of money to spare. And honestly, after everything you've told me about her behavior, Donna trailed off, shaking her head. But that's not the worst part. I waited, not breathing. When I said no, Stephanie got angry. She said, and I quote, "You're not like Mum. Mum gives money without even asking questions." Then she said something that made my blood run cold. What did she say? Donna looked at me with pity in her eyes. She said, "It doesn't matter anyway. That money will be mine eventually. I'm just asking for an advance on my inheritance." The world went very still. I heard birds singing somewhere, a car passing on the street, the normal sounds of a normal day. But nothing felt normal anymore. My daughter saw me as a bank account, an inheritance waiting to be claimed. Not a mother, not a person, just a source of money that would eventually run dry and leave her everything. "I'm so sorry," Donna whispered. "I didn't want to tell you, but—" "No," I said, my voice surprisingly steady. "You were right to tell me. I needed to know." That night I told Walter everything. His face went through stages of emotion. Shock, then anger, then a deep, profound sadness. "I need to tell you something too," he said quietly. He had been doing some investigating of his own. Through his old contacts in the banking world, Walter had learned things about Derek that made everything clearer. And worse. Derek's brokerage firm was failing, not just struggling, but actively hemorrhaging money. He had made bad investments, worse decisions, and borrowed from people he should not have borrowed from. By Walter's estimate, Derek was in debt for more than $400,000. "And there's more," Walter continued. "Last month they bought a new car, $80,000, a luxury SUV. They haven't paid us back a cent, but they're driving around in a car that costs more than most people's houses." I felt sick, physically ill. The money we gave them had not gone toward building a future. It had been thrown away on bad business deals and status symbols, while they looked at us and saw nothing but more money to take. "What do we do?" I asked. Walter took my hands in his. "We protect ourselves. We've spent our whole lives building something. We can't let them take everything we have." The next week I called our lawyer. Mr. Franklin has handled our legal affairs for more than 20 years. He drafted the loan documents for the money we gave Stephanie and Derek. He knew our family, our situation, our values. I sat in his office and told him everything. The disrespect, the entitlement, the things Stephanie had said to my sister, the discovery about Derek's debts, the way our daughter had turned from the child we loved into a stranger we barely recognized. Mr. Franklin listened without interrupting. When I finished, he leaned back in his chair and sighed. "I've seen this before," he said. "More often than you'd think. Children who grow up comfortable sometimes lose perspective. They start to believe they're entitled to their parents' wealth without earning it." "What are our options?" He pulled out a legal pad and started writing. "First, your current will leaves everything to Stephanie. We can change that. We can reduce her share, add other beneficiaries, set up conditions." "What kind of conditions?" "Whatever you want. Requirements that she maintain employment. Requirements that she repay the existing loan before receiving any inheritance. Charitable donations. It's your money. You decide how it's distributed." "And the loan?" I asked. "The $350,000. You have signed documents. Everything is legal and binding. I can prepare a formal demand for repayment, set a timeline, explain the consequences of default." I thought about it for a long moment. This felt like a line I could not uncross. Once I sent that letter, once I changed that will, there would be no pretending everything was fine anymore. Not yet, I finally said. Christmas is coming. I want to give her one more chance, one final opportunity to show me that my daughter is still in there somewhere. Mr. Franklin nodded. I'll have everything prepared. You tell me when you're ready. I went home that day with documents in my bag. A new will that left Stephanie only 10% of our estate. A demand letter for repayment of the loan. Everything signed and ready to be filed or sent at my word. I hid those papers in the bottom drawer of my dresser under winter sweaters I never wore. I prayed I would never have to use them. I prayed my daughter would remember who she was and who we were to her. I prayed for a Christmas miracle. But I also prepared for the worst. Because hope and preparation are not mutually exclusive. You can wish for the best while planning for the storm. Christmas morning arrived with the smell of cinnamon and pine filling our home. I had been decorating for weeks, wanting everything to be perfect. Lights on the porch, garland on the stairs, the big tree in the living room covered with ornaments collected over 36 years of marriage. I chose my outfit carefully. A white dress, elegant but simple. Pearl earrings that Walter gave me for our 20th anniversary. I wanted to look nice for the photographs, for the memories, for what I still hoped would be a beautiful family celebration. We had invited 15 guests. Our neighbours, Cynthia and Roger, who had been our friends for more than a decade. A few couples from church, my sister Donna, and Stephanie's old college friend Brenda, who had stayed in touch with our family over the years. I spent all morning cooking. Turkey with all the trimmings, mashed potatoes, gravy, cranberry sauce, green beans, 3 kinds of pie. Everything made from scratch, the way my mother taught me, the way I taught Stephanie when she was young. Stephanie and Derek arrived in the late afternoon. They swept in wearing expensive clothes, bringing with them an energy that felt wrong from the first moment. Derek was too loud, too performative, complimenting everything in a way that felt insincere. Stephanie was tense, her smile not reaching her eyes. I hugged my daughter at the door. She tolerated the embrace rather than returned it. Her body was stiff, her arms barely touching my back. "Merry Christmas, sweetheart," I whispered. "Merry Christmas, Mom." No warmth, no affection, just words. The dinner started well enough. Conversations flowed around the table. Cynthia talked about her grandchildren. Roger shared stories from his recent fishing trip. Donna made everyone laugh with tales from her workplace. Normal, pleasant holiday chatter. But I noticed how Stephanie picked at her food. How she made faces when she thought I was not looking. How Derek kept checking his phone under the table, typing responses to messages he apparently found more interesting than our gathering. Then Derek started talking about vacations. "We just got back from Aspen," he announced to the table. "Incredible skiing. You really haven't lived until you've experienced powder snow in the Rockies." Roger asked politely about the trip. "Oh, it was sublime," Derek continued. "The lodge we stayed at, you wouldn't believe the amenities. Private hot tub, personal chef, the works. Of course, places like that cost a fortune. But some things are worth the money." I thought about the $350,000 they still owed us. The fortune they apparently had for ski trips, but not for repaying family. Cynthia, bless her heart, tried to include me in the conversation. "Elnora, I always loved your bakery. Best cinnamon rolls in the whole state. You must miss it sometimes." Before I could respond, Stephanie jumped in. "Mom's bakery was cute. Very small town. But the food scene has evolved so much since then. There are places doing really innovative things now." Cute. Small town. Words that dismissed 25 years of my life's work. Derek nodded enthusiastically. "Stephanie's right. Artisanal is the thing now. Farm to table, locally sourced. very different from the old-fashioned approach. My cheeks burned. Brenda caught my eye across the table, her expression sympathetic. She had known our family for years. She had eaten countless meals at this very table. She could see exactly what was happening. After dinner, we moved to the living room for coffee and dessert. The Christmas tree twinkled in the corner. Soft music played. It should have been peaceful. I made the mistake of asking Stephanie about the loan. I did not do it publicly. I would never embarrass my daughter in front of others like that. I pulled her aside into the hallway near the kitchen where we could speak privately. "Sweetheart," I said softly, "I wanted to talk to you about the money you and Derek borrowed." Stephanie's face changed instantly. The polite mask dropped, replaced by something hard and hostile. "Not this again, Mum. It's been 4 years. You haven't paid anything back. We have a signed agreement." "I know we have an agreement." Her voice was sharp, cutting. "You remind me every chance you get." "That's not fair. I've barely mentioned it." "You don't have to mention it. It's always there. Every time I come to this house, every time I see you, I feel like you're keeping score. Like you're waiting for me to pay up so you can check me off your list." I was stunned. This was not how I thought of the money at all. I was not keeping score. I was worried about our retirement, about our financial security. I was hurt that our own daughter seemed to have no intention of honoring her commitments. "Stephanie, we used our life savings to help you. And you'll never let me forget it, will you?" She was almost shouting now, and I saw heads turn in the living room. "It's always about what you've done for me, what you've sacrificed, what a burden I am." "That's not what I'm saying at all." But she was not listening. She stormed back into the living room. I followed, hoping to calm the situation, hoping to return to the pleasant evening we were supposed to be having. I touched her arm. "Stephanie, please." She spun around. In her hand was her glass of red wine. Full, dark as blood. "You know what, Mum?" Her voice rang through the room. Every conversation stopped. Every eye turned to us. "Why don't you stop meddling in my life?" And then she threw the wine. Not threw exactly, poured. A deliberate, controlled motion. She tipped the glass and let the red liquid cascade down the front of my white dress. I felt it hit my chest, cold and shocking. I felt it soak through the fabric. I watched it spread like a wound across the white material. No one moved. 15 people sat in frozen silence, their faces masks of shock and horror. The Christmas music continued playing, incongruously cheerful against the devastation of the moment. Stephanie stood there, empty glass in hand, defiant. Not sorry, not embarrassed. Triumphant, almost. Like she had been waiting for this moment and was pleased it had finally arrived. I looked down at my ruined dress. The pearls Walter gave me now speckled with wine. The white fabric destroyed beyond repair. But it was not the dress I mourned. It was everything the dress represented. The occasion, the family, the daughter I thought I knew. I raised my eyes to meet Stephanie's. "You have made your choice," I said quietly. My voice did not shake. I was surprised by that. Inside I was screaming. Outside I was calm. "I respect your choice. Now you will respect mine." I walked to our bedroom. I changed into clean clothes. I washed the wine from my skin. I took deep breaths until my hands stopped trembling. When I returned to the living room, some guests were already gathering their things, uncomfortable and eager to escape. Stephanie and Derek were gone. They had left without a word while I was changing. One by one, I walked each guest to the door. I thanked them for coming. I apologized for the scene. I hugged Donna, who was crying. I squeezed Brenda's hand when she whispered, "I saw everything. If you ever need a witness, call me." When the last guest left, Walter closed the door and turned to me. "What do you want to do?" he asked. The documents were still in my dresser drawer. The new will, the demand letter, everything prepared, everything ready. I had hoped I would never need them. I had prayed for a different outcome. But Stephanie had made her choice. She had chosen to humiliate me in my own home in front of my friends and family. She had chosen contempt over love. She had chosen to treat me like an obstacle to be removed rather than a mother to be cherished. "Call Mr. Franklin," I said. "Tonight. I don't care what time it is. We're filing everything first thing in the morning." That night, I did not sleep. I sat by the window watching snow fall softly on our garden. The roses were dormant, waiting for spring. The tomato cages stood empty, silent sentinels in the cold. Everything was still and quiet and white. I thought about Stephanie as a baby, her tiny fingers wrapped around mine. I thought about her first steps, her first words, her first day of school. I thought about the woman she had become and wondered where we had gone wrong. But I also thought about myself, about my worth, about my right to be treated with dignity and respect. I had spent so long giving that I had forgotten I was allowed to have boundaries. I had spent so long loving unconditionally that I had forgotten conditions could be healthy. I was done waiting for my daughter to change. I was done hoping she would remember who she used to be. I was done being a doormat in my own home, a bank account with legs, a mother whose only value was what she could give. Tomorrow the lawyer would do his job. Tomorrow everything would change. But tonight, I allowed myself to grieve. For the daughter I lost. For the relationship that could have been. For the Christmas that should have brought us together, but instead tore us apart forever. The morning of December 26th dawned cold and grey. I had not slept more than an hour, but I felt strangely alert, energized even. There is something clarifying about hitting rock bottom. All the doubt disappears. All the second-guessing stops. You know exactly what you need to do. Mr. Franklin arrived at our house at 9 in the morning. He carried a briefcase full of documents and a pot of coffee his wife had insisted he bring. "You're sure about this?" he asked, not for the first time. "I've never been more sure of anything in my life." We sat at the dining room table, the same table where Stephanie had eaten countless meals, where we had celebrated birthdays and holidays, where I had thought our family would gather for generations to come. First, the will. I signed my name on the document that reduced Stephanie's inheritance from 100% to 10%. The remaining 90% would be divided three ways. 50% to a scholarship fund, named after my bakery, supporting young women pursuing business degrees. 20% to Margaret's nursing home, to ensure she received excellent care for the rest of her life. 20% to my sister Donna, who had stood by me through everything. Walter signed as well. We had discussed this thoroughly. We were united in our decision. "The will is filed," Mr. Franklin said, putting the document in his briefcase. "It takes effect immediately. If anything happens to either of you, this is how your assets will be distributed." Next came the demand letter for the loan. $350,000, 90 days to pay. If payment was not received, we would pursue legal action. "This will be sent today," Mr. Franklin explained, "by certified mail and by email. There will be no question that they received it." I nodded. "Good. There's one more thing." Mr. Franklin pulled out another document. "This is a formal notification of the will change. It explains exactly what Stephanie stands to inherit now and why. You don't have to send it, but I thought you might want her to understand the full picture." I read the document carefully. It was straightforward and professional. It outlined the change in inheritance. It noted the outstanding loan. It mentioned in diplomatic legal language that the change was a result of behavior that had caused irreparable harm to the family relationship. "Send it," I said. Mr. Franklin gathered everything and left around 11. I watched from the window as his car pulled away, feeling like I had just detonated a bomb and was waiting for the explosion. I did not have to wait long. At 1:15 in the afternoon, my phone rang. Stephanie. I did not answer. It rang again at 1:17, and 1:20, and 1:22. Again and again and again, each call more insistent than the last. I turned off the ringer and watched the notifications pile up. 1 missed call, 5 missed calls, 10 missed calls, 15. The text messages started coming too. I did not read them, but I could see the previews on my lock screen. "Mum, what is this? Call me back right now. You can't do this. This is insane. I'm your daughter." By 3 o'clock, I had 35 missed calls from Stephanie alone. Derek had called 7 times. Even Richard, Derek's father, whom I had met perhaps twice in my life, had called twice. The pressure campaign was in full effect. They tried Walter's phone next. He answered once, listened for about 30 seconds, then said calmly, "This is a decision your mother and I made together. If you want to discuss it, you'll do so respectfully and not by screaming into the phone." He hung up. Derek tried a different approach. He left a voicemail which Walter played on speaker for me to hear. His voice was smooth, conciliatory, completely different from his usual arrogant tone. "Walter, hi, it's Derek. Listen, I think there's been some kind of misunderstanding here. These legal documents, they seem really extreme. Can we just sit down like adults and talk about this? I'm sure we can work something out. There's no need for lawyers to be involved." No mention of the wine. No mention of the humiliation. No apology, no acknowledgement of wrongdoing. Just a desperate attempt to make the consequences go away. We did not call back. Over the next few days, the calls continued. Sometimes pleading, sometimes angry, sometimes a mixture of both. Stephanie showed up at our door twice. The first time, we did not answer. The second time, Walter opened the door, stood in the frame so she could not enter, and said simply, "When you're ready to apologize and have a real conversation, we'll be here. Until then, there's nothing to discuss." She called him heartless. She called me cruel. She cried and screamed and made a scene in front of our neighbors. Then she left, and we did not hear from her for 3 days. Word got around as it always does in small communities. Cynthia stopped by to check on us, bringing a casserole and kind words. Roger offered to help if we needed anything. People from church called to express their support. And then there was Brenda, Stephanie's college friend. She sent me a card in the mail, handwritten, expressing her shock at what she had witnessed and her admiration for how I had handled it. "I've watched Stephanie change over the years," Brenda wrote. "I've watched her become someone I don't recognize. What she did to you was unforgivable, and how you responded was exactly right. You showed her that actions have consequences. You showed her that love doesn't mean accepting abuse. I stand with you, and if you ever need me to testify to what I saw that night, I will." I kept that card. I still have it. Sometimes when doubts creep in late at night, I read it again to remind myself that I did the right thing. Margaret called from the nursing home. Her voice was frail but firm. "I heard what happened," she said. "I'm proud of you, Elnora. So proud. It takes courage to stand up to your own children. It takes strength to say enough is enough." "I didn't want it to come to this," I admitted. "Of course you didn't. No mother does. But Stephanie made her choices. She needs to learn that she can't treat people like garbage and expect them to keep serving her." After we hung up, I sat with Walter in our living room. The Christmas tree was still up its lights, blinking cheerfully as if nothing had changed. But everything had changed. Everything. "Do you think she'll ever come around?" I asked. Walter was quiet for a long moment. "I don't know. I hope so. But even if she does, things won't ever be the same. You can't unspill that wine. You can't unsay those words. Something once broken can only be repaired, never restored." He was right. I knew he was right. But knowing something and accepting it are two different things. I grieved for the relationship we had lost, even as I stood firm in my decision to protect what remained of my dignity and self-respect. 2 weeks into January, Stephanie reached out through Mr. Franklin. She wanted to meet. She was willing to do it on our terms. I agreed, but only at Mr. Franklin's office. Not at our house, not at her apartment. Neutral ground with a witness. The day of the meeting, Stephanie arrived alone. No Derek. That was the first surprise. She looked different than I expected. Not angry, not defiant. She looked tired, worn down, like she had not slept well in weeks. We sat across from each other at Mr. Franklin's conference table. He stayed in the room at my request, a silent observer. Stephanie spoke first. "I want to apologize." I waited. Those words could mean anything. What I did at Christmas was wrong. Throwing the wine, saying what I said in front of everyone. It was cruel and humiliating, and you didn't deserve it. "Why did you do it?" I asked. Stephanie's eyes filled with tears. "I don't know. I was angry. I felt like you were always holding the money over my head, like you were judging me. I felt like no matter what I did, I could never live up to your expectations. That's not how I saw it at all. I know that now." She wiped her eyes. "These past few weeks, I've had a lot of time to think, to really look at how I've been behaving, and I don't like what I see." She told me things then, things I had not known, things she had been hiding. Derek's business was gone, completely failed. He owed money to investors, to banks, to people who were not patient about being repaid. Their fancy lifestyle had been built on credit cards and borrowed time. The house they bought with our money was underwater. The new car had been repossessed a week ago. "We're broke," Stephanie said flatly. "Actually broke. And Derek, he's not handling it well. He blames everyone but himself. He blames you and Dad for not giving us more money. He blames me for not manipulating you better." Manipulating me. She had the grace to look ashamed. "That's how he sees it. How he trained me to see it. Your parents are your resources," he used to say. "Your job is to maximize what you can get from them." I'm so ashamed, Mum. I can't believe I let myself think that way. I listened to my daughter pour out the truth of her marriage, the truth of her choices, the truth of how far she had fallen from the person we raised her to be. It was painful to hear. Painful, but necessary. "What do you want from this meeting?" I asked when she finished. "I want to start over. I know I can't undo what I did. I know things will never be the same. But I want to try. I want to be your daughter again, really your daughter, not just someone who takes from you." I considered her words carefully. "And Derek?" Her jaw tightened. "We're separated. I moved out last week. I'm staying with Brenda until I figure out what comes next." That was the second surprise, and it told me more than anything else she had said. I reached across the table and took her hand. She flinched, like she expected me to reject her, like she did not believe she deserved kindness any more. "I love you, Stephanie. I never stopped loving you. But love isn't enough. There has to be respect. There has to be trust. And you destroyed both of those things." She nodded, tears streaming down her face. The will stays as it is, I continued. The demand for repayment stands. I'm not doing this to punish you. I'm doing it because you need to understand that actions have consequences. You need to build your own life, make your own way, not wait around for an inheritance that you feel entitled to. I understand. But I squeezed her hand. But if you genuinely want to repair this relationship, if you're willing to put in the work, to show up consistently, to treat us with the respect we deserve, then I'm willing to try. I'm willing to let you earn back my trust. Stephanie broke down then. She sobbed like she had not sobbed since she was a little girl, like something inside her had finally cracked open and released all the pressure that had been building for years. I moved around the table and held her. My daughter, my only child. The baby I thought I would never have, the girl who used to decorate cookies with me, the woman who had lost her way so completely. It's going to be hard, I whispered, but we can try. When we left Mr. Franklin's office that day, nothing was fixed. The wounds were still fresh, the trust still broken. But for the first time in months, maybe years, I felt something I had almost forgotten. Hope. Not the naive hope that everything would magically return to how it was. That was impossible. But hope that something new could grow from the wreckage. Something different, perhaps. Something smaller. But something real. The months that followed were not easy. Healing never is. I threw myself into new activities. I joined a gardening club that met every Thursday morning. I made friends there. Women my age, some older, all with their own stories of triumph and loss. We talked about flowers and vegetables, but we also talked about life, about family, about the difficult choices we had all made. Walter and I started traveling. Nothing extravagant. Weekend trips to places we had always wanted to see but never had time for. We went to Santa Fe and marveled at the art galleries. We drove to San Diego and walked on the beach at sunset. We spent a week in New Orleans eating beignets and listening to jazz in tiny clubs. For the first time in decades, I was not defined by being a mother. I was Elnora, just Elnora. A woman with her own interests, her own friendships, her own life separate from the child she raised. I started writing down my recipes, all the ones from the bakery, all the ones from my mother and grandmother, all the ones I had developed over the years. I thought maybe I would turn them into a cookbook someday, something to leave behind that was more than money. My relationship with Donna deepened. We talked every week, sometimes more. She came to visit for my 59th birthday, and we spent the whole day together, just the two of us, like when we were young. Margaret thrived in her nursing home. We visited her regularly, and she always had stories to tell, wisdom to share. She was 90 years old in spirit, even if her body was 82. I hoped I would age with half her grace. And Stephanie. Stephanie changed. Slowly, imperfectly, but genuinely. She started paying back the loan, small amounts at first, whatever she could manage from her salary after covering her basic expenses. $50 one month, $100 the next. Not nearly enough to make a dent in what she owed, but that was not the point. The point was that she was trying. She called me regularly, not to ask for anything, just to talk, to tell me about her day, her struggles, her small victories. She was rebuilding her career, starting over in a new company, learning to live within her means. The divorce from Derek was finalized in the spring. He did not go quietly. He tried to claim that the money Stephanie owed us was a joint debt, that he should not be responsible for it. Mr. Franklin handled that nonsense efficiently. Derek was on the hook for his half, and from what I heard, he was not handling his many debts well at all. On my birthday, Stephanie showed up at our door. She was carrying a cake box. "I made it myself," she said nervously. "From your chocolate cake recipe. I probably messed it up somewhere. I'm not the baker you are." I opened the box. The cake was lopsided. The frosting was uneven. The decorations were clumsy and childlike. It was the most beautiful cake I had ever seen. We ate it together, the three of us. Walter, Stephanie, and me. We did not talk about money or lawyers or the night everything fell apart. We just ate cake and laughed at old memories and enjoyed being in the same room without tension. It was not perfect. Nothing would ever be perfect again. But it was something. It was a start. A year passed, then another. The seasons turned, the holidays came and went, and life continued in its inexorable march forward. I thought a lot about forgiveness during that time, what it meant, what it required, whether I had truly forgiven Stephanie or simply moved forward without resolving the past. I came to understand that forgiveness is not a single act. It is a choice you make over and over again every time the memory surfaces, every time the hurt flares up. You choose to let it go. You choose not to dwell. You choose to see the person as they are now, not as they were in their worst moment. I chose forgiveness. Not because Stephanie deserved it, not because she had fully earned it back, but because holding on to anger was poisoning me more than it was punishing her, because I wanted to be free, because life is too short to spend it trapped in bitterness. The will stayed changed, the loan repayment continued slow and steady. Those were boundaries I kept because they were healthy, not because they were punishments. Boundaries and forgiveness can coexist. Love and accountability can walk hand in hand. Last Christmas, Stephanie called me in early December. "Mum." Her voice was tentative, like she was still afraid of rejection. "Can I come home for Christmas this year?" I thought about the white dress, now long since thrown away. I thought about the red wine. I thought about the words that had cut deeper than any blade. And then I thought about the lopsided cake, the weekly phone calls, the steady payments, small but consistent, the daughter who was trying so hard to be better. "Yes," I said, "you can come home. But Stephanie, come because you want to be with family, not because you feel guilty, not because you want something. Come because this is where you belong." She was quiet for a moment. "I want to be there, Mum. I really do." "Then come." Christmas morning she arrived early, before the other guests, before the chaos of the day began. She stood in my kitchen, an apron tied around her waist, helping me prepare the meal, just like she used to do when she was 7 years old. We did not talk about the past. We did not need to. It was there, part of our history, part of who we had become, but it no longer defined us. It no longer controlled every interaction, every word, every silence between us. I looked at my daughter, this grown woman who had hurt me so deeply and was now working so hard to make amends. I saw the little girl who used to decorate cookies with me. I saw the teenager who used to tell me all her secrets. I saw the woman she was becoming stronger and wiser for having fallen so far. "I love you, Mum," she said suddenly, looking up from the potatoes she was peeling. "I love you too, sweetheart." And I meant it, wholly, completely, without reservation. Not because she had never hurt me, but because love, real love, survives even the deepest wounds. It bends without breaking. It grows back stronger after being cut down. That is what I learned from the worst Christmas of my life. That is the gift that came wrapped in red wine and shattered expectations. You cannot control how people treat you, but you can control how you respond. You can set boundaries. You can demand respect. You can walk away from abuse, even when it comes from those you love most. And when they come back, changed and humble and genuinely sorry, you can choose to let them in again. Carefully, slowly, with boundaries intact and eyes wide open. That is not weakness, that is wisdom. If you are watching this and you are dealing with a similar situation, let me tell you something. You are not alone. You are not wrong for having standards. You are not cruel for enforcing consequences. You are not a bad parent for refusing to be treated like dirt. Your children are not entitled to your money, your time, or your dignity. Those things are gifts given freely when they are deserved, withheld when they are not. That is not conditional love. That is healthy love. There is a difference, and it took me 58 years to learn it. So here is my question for you. Have you ever had to set difficult boundaries with someone you love? How did you find the strength to do it? Tell me in the comments below. I would love to hear your stories. If this video touched your heart, please hit that like button. It helps more people find these stories. Subscribe to the channel so you do not miss the next one, and share this video with someone who needs to hear it. Someone who is struggling with a difficult family relationship. Someone who needs to know that they are not alone. Thank you for staying with me until the end. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being part of this community. I wish you peace. I wish you boundaries. And I wish you the strength to protect both, no matter what life throws at you. Until next time.